All right, for more on this, let's bring in California Republican Congressman and House Foreign Affairs Committee member Darrell Issa. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks very much for coming back after being here 2 o'clock in the morning. You're doing yeoman duty here. I want to play a little bit more of Tim Kaine, because he does seem to be shouting from the rooftops that the president should have gone to Congress first.
It's an empty rooftop, though.
Just Friday night, the Israeli foreign minister said that its bombing campaign over the last 9 days had set back the Iranian nuclear program by at least 2 or 3 years. There was no imminent threat to the United States from this nuclear program. It was an offensive war of choice by a president without consultation with Congress.
What do you say, an offensive war of choice without consultation of Congress?
Well, you know, it's always what the other side says. They didn't say it when President Obama acted against Libya. That's a partisan statement.
How many cruise missiles did Bill Clinton fire into Afghanistan without getting congressional?
Well, he actually had about 5 different places over his career he did it. He was very much an activist. But I think your point about cruise missiles is important. These are not ground troops. We're not entangled in a war. All of us understand that the 8 years of the Iran-Iraq war means that you do not go into a country of nearly 90 million people and think that you're going to get out quickly. So we're not going in. We have no need to go in. The president is not trying to do regime change. He's made that clear. He is trying to change the regime's way of doing business for the first time in a real meaningful way since Reagan.
You know, there is a lot of concern about regime change, though, and what might come next. I went to dinner on Friday night with a couple of Iranian friends, and that's the one big thing that they worry about is if the Ayatollah were to fall, what replaces it? Joaquin Castro had those same concerns. Listen to what he said.
If the government of Iran collapses, we could have a repeat of what happened with Iraq. Al-Qaeda and later ISIS essentially franchised across the Middle East and parts of North Africa, and the threat of terrorism, at least for a while, became even greater because of that.
So what about those concerns? And we've heard from a lot of Iranians that, yeah, you've got some groups on the outside, the Shah's son and other groups, but you don't have anybody from the inside that's ready to do this. They say that we'd love to have democracy in Iran, but we're not ready to rise up and take over yet.
Well, I think that's simply something you hear from people who are assuming that the status quo is acceptable.
No. They hate the status quo.
No, you hear that, but I've met with all the groups, the Shah's groups, MEK, and other groups. Each doesn't like each other. But the reality is that you have 2 major groups in Iran. More than 85% of the population are Shia, the majority of those being, quote, Persians. They don't have the same breakdown that you had in Iraq, where you have a majority and a minority, and the majority has been ruled by the minority for decades. They don't want the Shah back. They say they want democracy. It's doubtful that they'd get a true democracy. But can you do worse than a theocracy that essentially imprisons their own people and, in fact, it tries to spread throughout the rest of the world their form of Shia radicalism?
Well, if the IRGC took over, I mean, they're basically in control now, but if they took over all the strings of power, some people say that could be worse.
They've been in control since the little fake game they did under Jimmy Carter. Mm-hmm. Those are just students. The reality is the same group of people have been in control. They use a president by title and an Ayatollah, and they have all this claim of separation. The fact is, it is a group of, call it 5% or 10% of the population that are radical Islamist. They're already in control. So could we do as bad? Of course, something bad could happen. But do the people of Iran deserve an opportunity? Yes. Have they risen up by the hundreds of thousands and millions, time and time again, only to find themselves being killed in the streets and the West not coming to their aid? So as we try to change this regime's behavior, the hope is that, yes, they may rise up and they may be successful. But the plan by President Trump, very wisely, is to change the behavior of the regime. In 1987, when they last threatened to and did close down the straits, Reagan went in and he sunk their Navy, killed their admiral. It wasn't a big action, but it was big enough to change their behavior for a number of years.
Well, we'll anxiously anticipate what comes next. Congressman, thank you for coming back again.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it. We'll have to get you a cot in the green room.